You want to challenge me to a duel? The 7-foot-tall Craxthian warrior's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. A mere human? Marcus leaned back in his chair, boots propped up on the cantina table, and took another sip of his synthesized whiskey. The fact that it tasted nothing like actual Earth whiskey somehow made the moment even more perfect. Yep. The warrior's crystalline eyes narrowed to thin violet slits. Do you even know who I am? Nope. Marcus popped the P sound with deliberate irreverence. Don't particularly care either. The gathered crowd of various alien species began muttering amongst themselves. Some were already placing bets via their neural interfaces, while others were positioning themselves for the best view of what they assumed would be a very brief and bloody spectacle. I am Zexthor the Undefeated, first blade of the Craxthian Empire, master of the 7 forms of... Cool story. Marcus finished his drink and set the glass down with a decisive clink. So that's a yes to the duel then. One of Zexthor's secondary arms twitched in barely contained rage. The Craxthian warrior's reputation across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy was legendary. He had never lost a duel in over 200 standard cycles. The idea that this small, squishy human would dare to interrupt his formal introduction was beyond insulting. Very well, Zexthor growled. When I separate your head from your shoulders, I shall mount it in my trophy room alongside the other foolish creatures who dared to challenge me. Neat. I've always wanted to be a wall decoration. Marcus stood and stretched lazily. Traditional rules? Of course. Though I doubt you know them, human. First blood or yield. No energy weapons, no projectiles, blade-to-blade combat only. Marcus rattled off the rules while checking his watch. Starting distance of 10 paces, neutral ground, witnesses present. That about cover it? The gathered crowd's murmuring grew louder. The human actually knew the ancient dueling protocols. This was getting interesting. Zexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Craxthian equivalent of grinding one's teeth. The Plaza of Champions, 1 standard hour. Works for me. Marcus headed for the exit, then paused. Oh, and Zex, you might want to update your will first. The cantina erupted in a mixture of shocked gasps and nervous laughter as Marcus sauntered out. Several patrons immediately began accessing the local betting networks, placing wagers on how quickly the human would die. The odds were not in Marcus's favor. 1 hour later, the Plaza of Champions was packed. Word had spread quickly through the station's communication networks, drawing a diverse crowd of spectators eager to witness what most assumed would be a spectacular execution. The plaza itself was a circular arena roughly 50 meters in diameter, its floor composed of perfectly maintained synthetic marble imported from the quarries of Nexus Prime. Marcus arrived exactly on time, wearing the same casual attire from the cantina, worn leather boots, faded cargo pants, and a simple black t-shirt. His only concession to the occasion was a plain steel sword hanging at his hip in an equally plain scabbard. Zexthor, by contrast, had arrived in full ceremonial combat armor, its iridescent plates gleaming under the plaza's artificial lighting. His ceremonial blade was a masterwork of Craxthian metallurgy, its mono-molecular edge capable of slicing through most known materials with minimal resistance. Last chance to withdraw, human, Zexthor offered, his mandibles forming what passed for a condescending smile. I would hate to deprive the galaxy of such amusing entertainment. Marcus drew his sword and gave it a few experimental swings. The blade looked almost primitive compared to Zexthor's weapon, just plain steel with simple leather wrapping on the grip. Nah, I'm good, but thanks for asking. That's really thoughtful of you. The designated official, a spindly Varshek civil servant who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, stepped forward. The terms have been agreed upon. The duel will proceed according to the ancient protocols. Combatants, take your positions. Marcus and Zexithor moved to opposite sides of a large circle inscribed in the plaza floor. The crowd fell silent as the official raised a ceremonial staff. May honor guide your blades, the official intoned. Begin! Zexthor launched himself forward with explosive speed, his ceremonial blade describing a perfect arc through the air as he closed the distance. It was a technique he had perfected over centuries, one that had ended countless duels in their opening seconds. Marcus wasn't there. The human had shifted ever so slightly to the left, allowing Zexthor's blade to pass through empty air. More importantly, Marcus hadn't even raised his sword to defend himself. He just stood there, head cocked slightly to one side, watching. Zexthor recovered instantly, spinning into a complex series of strikes that incorporated all 4 of his arms in a deadly dance. The crowd gasped as the Craxthian's blade became a blur of motion, each strike flowing seamlessly into the next. Marcus proceeded to make Zexthor look absolutely ridiculous. With minimal movement, the human simply wasn't where any of Zexthor's attacks landed. It was like trying to hit smoke with a hammer. Every perfectly executed strike found nothing but empty air, while Marcus appeared to be casually studying his opponent's technique with mild interest. "That's pretty good," Marcus commented as he ducked under a horizontal slash that would have decapitated him. "The way you coordinate your secondary arms with the primary strike is really impressive. Did you develop that yourself?" Zexthor's only response was a guttural roar as he launched into an even more complex sequence of attacks. The Crexithian's legendary composure was crumbling with each failed strike, his movements becoming increasingly desperate. "The footwork's a bit sloppy, though," Marcus continued, still not bothering to raise his own blade. "You're overcommitting on the follow-through. Makes you predictable." The crowd was dead silent now, watching in disbelief as the legendary Crexithian warrior failed to land a single hit on the seemingly bored human. Some of the more mathematically inclined species in attendance had already calculated the statistical impossibility of what they were witnessing. "Also," Marcus added, "you might want to watch your left side. You're leaving it pretty open when you—" "Fight me properly!" Zexthor bellowed, all pretense of dignity abandoned. "Raise your blade and fight!" Marcus sighed. "If you insist." What happened next was so fast that many spectators would later claim they must have blinked and missed it. One moment Marcus was standing casually, sword pointed at the ground. The next moment, Zexthor's ceremonial blade went spinning through the air, landing point first in the plaza floor 30 meters away. The Crexithian warrior stood frozen, all four arms slightly raised, staring at his empty hands in shock. A thin line of phosphorescent blue blood welled up from a shallow cut across his primary right wrist. "First blood," the official announced, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. "The duel is concluded. The human Marcus is declared victor." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the station's ever-present ambient hum seemed muted, as if reality itself was having trouble processing what had just occurred. Marcus sheathed his sword and walked over to where Zexthor still stood motionless. "Hey, good match. You've got some serious skill there. Just needs a bit of refinement." The Crexithian warrior's mandibles worked soundlessly for a moment before he found his voice. What form was that? What school taught you to move like that?" "Oh, this wasn't any fancy alien combat style," Marcus replied with a grin. "Just good old-fashioned human kendo and hema. About 15 years of practice, plus some cross-training in other Earth martial arts." But humans are supposed to be primitive. Your species only achieved FTL travel less than a century ago." Marcus shrugged. "Yeah, but we've been hitting each other with sharp pieces of metal for thousands of years. Gets you pretty good at it after a while." "The betting calculations are complete," someone in the crowd announced. "The human's victory defied odds of approximately 1.3 million to 1. "Neat," Marcus said. "Hey Zex, wanna grab a drink? I can show you how to fix that footwork issue I mentioned." Zexthor stared at the human for a long moment, then let out a sound that might have been either a laugh or a sob. Yes, I would like that." As the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with excitement, Marcus clapped one of Zexthor's secondary arms in a friendly manner. "Cool. And hey, maybe we can work on getting you a less pretentious title than the Undefeated. Something like Zexthor, the pretty decent guy who's really good at sword stuff." "That is not a proper Crexithian title." "Exactly. It's got character. Shows humility. Chicks dig humility." "I do not understand humans." "Nobody does, buddy. Nobody does." Later that evening, as Marcus and Zexthor shared drinks in the same cantina where their confrontation had begun, the Crexithian warrior finally asked the question that had been bothering him. "Why did you challenge me? What did you hope to prove?" Marcus took a sip of his definitely not whiskey and smiled. "Honestly, I just wanted to make a point about assumptions. Everyone out here thinks humans are these primitive newcomers who got lucky with FTL tech. They look at our short lifespans and relatively simple technology and assume we're easy targets. And your point? That maybe, just maybe, living on a death world for a few 100,000 years and constantly trying to kill each other might have taught us a thing or two about combat." Zexthor considered this as he nursed his own drink. "You knew you would win before the duel even began." "Pretty much, yeah. No offense, but your style is designed to look impressive and intimidate opponents. Humans developed our combat techniques to actually kill each other as efficiently as possible. Form follows function and all that." "I should be insulted," Zexthor mused. "Instead, I find myself intrigued. Would you be willing to teach me some of your human techniques? Marcus grinned. Only if you teach me that four-armed sword style of yours. That stuff looked awesome, even if it wasn't particularly effective. Deal. Zexathor raised his glass, and what he had learned was a human gesture of agreement. Though I must warn you, learning Craxthian combat forms without having four arms may prove challenging. Please, Marcus scoffed. I once learned Martian zero-G knife fighting just for fun. This'll be a piece of cake. What is cake? Oh man, you're in for a treat. Hey bartender, got any Earth desserts in that synthesizer? And so began an unlikely friendship between a human swordsman and a Craxthian warrior, built on mutual respect, cultural exchange, and absolutely terrible synthesized cake. Word of their duels spread throughout the galaxy, leading to a marked decrease in assumptions about humanity's combat capabilities, and a surprising increase in interest in Earth's martial arts. Some say that years later, Zexathor became known as the first Craxthian master of human kendo, while Marcus pioneered a two-armed adaptation of Craxthian sword forms that became popular among human martial artists. But that's a story for another time. The most important lesson, as Marcus would often say while training new students, was simple. Never underestimate a species that spent most of its history figuring out the most efficient ways to stab each other. We might be new to the galaxy, but we're old hands at violence. To which Zexathor would invariably add, and yet somehow they managed to make it to the stars without destroying themselves. Truly, humans are a paradox wrapped in an enigma and dipped in synthetic whiskey. That's not how that saying goes. I have modified it to be more accurate. Fair enough. This is a terrible idea, Zexathor announced, his mandibles clicking in what Marcus had come to recognize as the Craxthian equivalent of a resigned sigh. Those are literally my favorite kind, Marcus replied cheerfully, examining the tournament registration hologram floating between them. Come on, we've been training together for 6 months. We're ready for this. The Grand Galactic Combat Arts Tournament was the most prestigious martial arts competition in known space. Held once every 5 standard years on the neutral world of New Alexandria, it attracted warriors from hundreds of species across dozens of galaxies. Ready to make complete fools of ourselves, perhaps, Zexathor grumbled. No duo has ever entered the paired combat division using mixed species techniques. There are reasons for this, my impulsive human friend. Yeah, because everyone else is boring and stuck in their ways. Marcus began filling out the registration form with enthusiastic swipes through the hologram. Think about it. Your four-armed Craxthian forms combined with my human adaptations will blow their minds. If we survive long enough to compete at all. The Vkr'lak brothers are entering this year. The who now? Zexathor's crystalline eyes widened in disbelief. Sometimes I forget how new humans are to galactic society. The Vkr'lak brothers are only the most legendary martial arts duo in the last 3 centuries. They've won the paired combat division 6 times in a row. Cool, cool. Marcus nodded absently as he continued with the registration. So we'll be the ones to break their streak. Even better story that way. They once defeated a Hexapodian War Master using only their ceremonial warm-up routine. Neat. Hey, do you think we should wear matching outfits? I'm thinking something in metallic purple. Marcus! Zexathor's voice took on the patient tone of someone explaining physics to a particularly enthusiastic rock. The Vkr'lak brothers train 16 hours a day. They have perfected their art over 300 years. Their synchronization is so precise that some theorize they share a psychic bond. Yeah, but do they have style? Marcus finally looked up from the registration form. Besides, we've got something better than centuries of practice. And what, pray tell, is that? Human audacity combined with Craxthian precision. Marcus grinned. Plus, I've got some ideas about how to adapt your four-arm techniques for tag team moves that nobody's ever seen before. Before Zexathor could voice further objections, Marcus hit the submission button with a flourish. The hologram flashed green, confirming their entry into the tournament. There, no backing out now. We've got 3 weeks to prepare, which is like, at least 2 weeks more than we need. I am beginning to understand why your species has so many sayings about fools rushing in where angels fear to tread. That's the spirit? Now, about those matching outfits. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of intensive training, creative experimentation, and only a few minor injuries. Marcus and Zexathor worked to combine their distinct styles into something entirely new, with the humans' innovative approach complementing the Craxthians' traditional forms in unexpected ways. Finally, the day of the tournament arrived. The great arena of New Alexandria was packed with spectators from across known space, its energy shields humming as they contained the atmosphere within the massive open-air structure. The paired combat division had drawn 32 teams this year, a record number of entries. "I still cannot believe you actually made us wear these," Zexathor muttered as they waited in the competitors' area. The metallic purple combat suits Marcus had insisted on were drawing quite a few stares. "We look amazing and you know it." Marcus was practically bouncing with excitement. "Besides, psychological warfare is totally valid. We're going to dazzle them with fashion, then destroy them with skill." Their first match was against a duo of Centaurian blade dancers. The four-legged aliens were famous for their flowing, graceful combat style that incorporated elements of what humans would call dressage. "Remember the plan," Marcus whispered as they entered the arena. "We have a plan? Improvise wildly and hope for the best." "That is not a plan. That is the opposite of a plan." "Exactly." The match began, and what followed would later be described by commentators as either brilliant madness or mad brilliance. Marcus and Zexathor moved in perfect asymmetry, with the human darting between the Centaurian's legs, while the Craxthian's forearms created a whirlwind of blades above. The audience watched in stunned silence as traditional Centaurian blade dancing was countered by what appeared to be a combination of human capoeira and Craxthian honor forms. "They won in under 3 minutes. That actually worked," Zexathor said in disbelief as they left the arena to thunderous applause. "Of course it did. Now we just have to do that 5 more times, except better." Their subsequent matches proved increasingly challenging, but the unique combination of their styles continued to catch opponents off guard. A pair of Andromedian combat monks fell to a technique Marcus had dubbed the spinning death pinwheel. The reigning champions from the Silicon Collective short-circuited, trying to calculate the probability matrices of their seemingly random attack patterns. Finally, they found themselves in the championship match, facing none other than the legendary Vkr'lak brothers. The brothers were tall, willowy aliens with gray skin and movements so perfectly synchronized they seemed to share a single mind. Their entrance into the arena was met with reverential silence from the crowd. "Nice outfits," Marcus commented. "Very traditional, very boring." The brothers didn't respond, taking their position with fluid grace. "Any last-minute advice?" Marcus whispered to Zexathor. "Yes, it was an honor knowing you." "That's the spirit." The signal to begin sounded, and the brothers moved like liquid mercury, their traditional weapons, something between a sword and a staff, weaving complex patterns through the air. Marcus and Zexathor responded with what could only be described as organized chaos. The human rolled under one brother's strike while simultaneously grabbing one of Zexathor's secondary arms, using the momentum to sling himself feet first at the other brother's head. The Craxthian, in turn, used his remaining arms to parry a flurry of strikes while spinning in place, creating a defensive barrier that looked physically impossible for a being of his size. The brothers had never faced anything like it. Their perfectly synchronized techniques, honed over centuries, were designed to counter traditional forms and patterns. But there was nothing traditional about a human using a Craxthian's arms as improvised gymnastic equipment while quoting Earth action movies. "Get over here!" Marcus shouted as he executed a move that combined a judo throw with Craxthian blade work. "I've always wanted to say that in an actual fight." "Less quoting, more focusing," Zexathor called back, though there was a note of amusement in his clicking. The match continued for nearly 15 minutes, the longest of the tournament. The brothers' perfect technique clashed against what one commentator would later call beautiful insanity given physical form. The audience watched in rapt attention as 4 different martial arts traditions were deconstructed, blended, and reformed into something entirely new before their eyes. The end came suddenly. One of the brothers, attempting to counter yet another impossible combination move, stepped slightly out of sync with his sibling. It was a tiny mistake, one that would have been imperceptible against any normal opponents. Marcus and Zexathor were not normal opponents. The human launched himself high into the air, stepping off Zexathor's upper shoulders, while the Craxthian's 4 arms created a spinning wall of blades that forced the brothers apart. Marcus landed between them, swept one brother's legs while Zexathor disarmed the other with a technique that looked like it broke several laws of physics, and suddenly both brothers were on the ground with practice blades at their throats. The arena erupted in chaos. That, the head judge announced after several minutes of deliberation, was either the most brilliant or most ridiculous display of martial arts in the history of this tournament. Possibly both. Either way, we declare Marcus and Zexathor the winners. Later, during the awards ceremony, one of the Vkr'lak brothers approached them. "Never in 300 years," he said slowly. Have we seen anything like that? What do you call this style you have created? Marcus and Zexathor looked at each other. Human audacity, Zexathor said. Craxthian precision, Marcus said simultaneously. They both paused, then spoke again in unison. Controlled chaos combat. 3 different names, the brother mused. How appropriate for a style that defies conventional understanding. We look forward to seeing how it evolves. As they celebrated later in what passed for a new Alexandria pub, Zexathor turned to Marcus. I cannot believe that worked. Of course it worked. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our fighting skills. It's our ability to take different ideas and smush them together into something new. Well, that and our stunning good looks. Your species is insane, Zexathor declared. Brilliantly, wonderfully insane. Thanks. Hey, want to enter the Tri-World Championships next month? I've got some ideas involving zero-G combat and those spring-loaded legs you mentioned. No. But, no. What if we... Marcus, I swear by all 17 Craxthian battle gods. Fine, fine. Marcus took a sip of his drink and grinned. We'll talk about it tomorrow when you're in a better mood. Zexathor clicked his mandibles in what had become his signature expression of fond exasperation. Sometimes I think the true strength of humanity isn't your combat prowess or your adaptability, but your absolute refusal to accept impossibility as a concept. That's fair, Marcus agreed. Hey, do you think we could adapt some of those moves for a dance competition? There's this thing called breakdancing that I think would work really well with your 4 arms. The Craxthian warrior's only response was to order another round of drinks. He had a feeling he was going to need them. In the years that followed, the story of the human and the Craxithian who revolutionized galactic martial arts became something of a legend. Their style, eventually officially named adaptive combat synthesis, though most practitioners still called it controlled chaos, spread throughout known space as a symbol of what could be achieved when different species and traditions came together. More importantly, it served as yet another reminder to the galactic community that humans, while young among the stars, had a unique talent for taking the established order of things, turning it upside down, and somehow making it work better in the process. As Marcus would often tell his students, the universe is full of rules and traditions. Our job isn't to break them, it's to bend them until they form something beautiful and new. Also, never underestimate the tactical advantage of a really eye-catching outfit. To which Zexathor would invariably add, and always remember that somewhere out there, a human is probably figuring out how to do something everyone else thinks is impossible just because someone told them it couldn't be done. That's not actually part of the teaching curriculum. No, but it is an essential survival tip for anyone dealing with humans. Fair enough. Now about that zero-G breakdancing competition. Marcus, no! Marcus, yes! This, Zexathor declared with all 4 arms crossed, is your worst idea yet. You say that about all my ideas? Marcus replied as he put the finishing touches on the enrollment forms. And yet, they keep working out amazingly well. They stood in front of a massive structure that somehow managed to look both ancient and futuristic. The newly constructed Intergalactic Academy of Adaptive Combat Arts. Its crystalline spires reached toward New Alexandria's violet sky, while training grounds sprawled across several square kilometers below. Opening a martial arts academy is different from winning tournaments, Zexathor pointed out. We will be responsible for students, teaching, administration. He shuddered at the last word. That's why you're handling all the boring stuff, Marcus said cheerfully. I'll focus on the fun parts, like throwing people across rooms and inventing ridiculous names for new techniques. We agreed to share responsibilities equally. Yeah, but you're so much better at organizing things. All those arms make multitasking a breeze. Besides, I've already got our first class lined up. Zexathor's mandibles clicked rapidly. You what? Check it out. Marcus activated his holopad, displaying a list of 20 names from various species. We've got 3 Andromedans, a pair of hexapodians, even a quantum collective consciousness that wants to learn physical combat. How cool is that? A quantum collective? Those are beings of pure energy. They don't even have bodies. Yeah, that's why they're bringing their own containment suit. They said something about wanting to understand physical existence better. Or possibly about destroying all organic life. The translation was a bit fuzzy. Before Zexathor could voice his concerns about teaching potentially genocidal energy beings, the Academy's main entrance detected their presence and slid open with a satisfying whoosh. The interior was a blend of traditional dojo aesthetics from various cultures, polished wooden floors from Earth, meditation crystals from Thea, and atmospheric generators that could simulate any gravity or climate. "Look," Marcus said, his voice taking on an unusually serious tone. "After what we showed everyone at the tournament, there's huge demand for this new style we created. People want to learn how to adapt and combine different techniques. Who better to teach them than the ones who proved it could work? And the fact that the Galactic Sports Federation is paying us rather well has nothing to do with it? Hey, changing the face of martial arts doesn't mean we can't profit from it. Besides, think of all the stuffy traditionalists we get to annoy." That earned a clicking laugh from Zexathor. If there was one thing he'd learned to appreciate about humans, it was their talent for productive troublemaking. The first day of classes arrived sooner than either of them expected. Their initial batch of students was interesting, to say the least. "Welcome to the first session of Adaptive Combat Synthesis," Marcus announced to the assembled beings. "Or as we like to call it, how to fight good while looking awesome." "That is not what we call it," Zexathor interjected. "It is now. I had badges made and everything." The students, ranging from humanoid to distinctly not, watched this exchange with varying degrees of confusion and amusement. The Quantum Collective's containment suit hummed quietly in the back. "Now," Marcus continued, "traditional martial arts are all about following established forms and patterns. We're going to learn those too, but then we're going to do something more interesting. We're going to break them apart and put them back together in new ways." "Question." One of the Andromedans raised a tentacle. "Is it true that your style was developed by accidentally combining techniques while sleep-deprived and possibly intoxicated?" "That is completely untrue," Zexathor stated firmly. "It was completely intentional intoxication," Marcus added. "What followed was unlike any martial arts instruction in known space. Students were encouraged to not just learn techniques, but to question why they worked and how they could be modified. The Hexapodians discovered that their multiple legs made them excellent platforms for launching smaller teammates. The Andromedans developed a fighting style that involved literally tying themselves into knots. And the Quantum Collective, well, I'm still not sure if they're actually learning combat or just really enjoying wobbling that containment suit around," Marcus commented during a break. "But hey, they haven't tried to destroy all organic life yet, so I'm counting it as a win." Their teaching methods raised more than a few eyebrows in the traditional martial arts community. The arrival of Master Kavoth, head of the Galactic Combat Arts Council, was therefore not entirely unexpected. The ancient Varaxian master materialized in their main training hall one morning, because apparently walking through doors was too mundane. His dozen eyes surveyed the scene before him, a Hexapodian attempting to juggle 3 smaller aliens, while an Andromedan practiced what appeared to be interpretive dance with lethal intent. "What?" Master Kavoth demanded. "Do you call this chaos?" "Thursday," Marcus replied cheerfully. "You should see what we do on Tuesdays." "This is not how martial arts are taught. There must be discipline, structure, proper forms." "With all due respect, Master Kavoth," Zexathor interrupted, "our students are learning exactly what they need to survive in a galaxy where traditional forms don't always apply." "Yeah," Marcus chimed in. "Watch this. Hey, Tizix, show the master your new move." One of the Hexapodians immediately launched itself into what could only be described as a breakdancing tornado of legs and training blades, while somehow maintaining perfect balance on its uppermost appendages. That's impossible," Kavoth sputtered. "The gravitational calculations alone. That's the neat thing about humans," Marcus grinned. "We're really bad at accepting words like impossible. We prefer terms like temporarily inconvenient or challenge accepted." "Also," Zexathor added, "it helps that we've installed gravity modulators in the training areas. Safety first." Kavoth spent the next several hours observing their classes, his expression shifting from horror to confusion to reluctant fascination. He watched as students from traditionally hostile species worked together to develop combination techniques. He saw centuries-old forms deconstructed and rebuilt into something new yet somehow familiar. Finally, as the day's sessions were ending, the Varaxian master approached them again. "I came here," he said slowly, "expecting to shut this academy down for making a mockery of sacred traditions. Instead, I find myself intrigued. Your methods are unorthodox, but I cannot argue with the results." "Thanks," Marcus beamed. "Want to learn how to do that tornado move? We've got a special course for beings with multiple eyes. Great for preventing dizziness." That would be inappropriate for someone of my station." Master Kavoth, Zexathor said gently. If there's one thing I've learned from working with humans, it's that dignity and innovation are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes the most dignified thing we can do is admit that there might be better ways than the old ways. The Varaxian was quiet for a moment, then, perhaps, a private lesson? And that was how the head of the Galactic Combat Arts Council ended up spending his evenings learning breakdancing combat techniques from a human and a Craxthian. Word spread quickly through the galactic community. Soon their academy had a waiting list longer than a centaurian's tail. They even had to open a second campus to handle the demand. You realize, Zexathor said one evening as they watched their students practice, that we've essentially created an entirely new martial arts tradition by breaking all the rules of traditional martial arts. Ironic, isn't it? Marcus laughed. Give it a few centuries and we'll probably have people complaining that we're not following the traditional rules of breaking traditional rules. Speaking of breaking rules, what exactly is the Quantum Collective doing? They both turned to watch as the containment suit performed what appeared to be a perfect recreation of human moonwalking, while simultaneously demonstrating advanced Craxthian blade forms. I think, Marcus said thoughtfully, they're finally understanding the concept of physical comedy. Either that or they're plotting to revolutionize interpretive dance across the galaxy. Could go either way, really. The academy continued to grow and evolve, much like the fighting style it taught. Students went on to become teachers themselves, spreading the principles of adaptive combat synthesis throughout the galaxy. Some combined it with their own species' traditions, creating ever more diverse and interesting variations. And at the center of it all remained the unlikely duo who started it all. A human who never met a rule he couldn't creatively reinterpret, and a Craxithian who learned that sometimes the best way to honor tradition was to help it grow into something new. You know what we should do next? Marcus said one day, that familiar glint in his eye. No, Zexthor replied immediately. We should start a culinary arts program. Think about it. Fusion cuisine, but with actual fusion reactions for the energy-based life forms. Absolutely not. But, Marcus, the last time you tried to combine human and Craxthian cooking, you created something that achieved sentience and tried to escape the kitchen. Yeah, but it was delicious though. Zexathor clicked his mandibles in resignation. He knew that tone. Somewhere in the galaxy, a new impossible thing was about to become possible, simply because a human thought it should be. And honestly, he wouldn't have it any other way. Fine, he conceded. But this time we're getting proper containment fields for the experimental dishes. I'm still finding teeth marks in my ceremonial armor from the last attempt. That's the spirit. Now, about my idea for zero-G sushi. The Quantum Collective, still practicing its moonwalking, hummed in what might have been approval, or possibly existential dread. With humans around, it was getting harder to tell the difference. To be continued.